Okay. Thank you, universe. Thank you, virtual reality. Thank you, virtual studio. Thank you, my technological brain, which talk about firing and rewiring. Like I knew nothing, and I've created a new pathway that says I can do anything on this
Yes.
goal, even when it didn't go right in the first beginning of our. So here we are, and I'm very grateful for breathing because I get very triggered because I'm a perfectionist. What do you think about that? I like things to go right. What do you think about that? Anyway, thank you. My name is Dr. Tovah Goldfine, and I was just really triggered because I couldn't get started the live show. It's now live. We're streaming to my Facebook page. This is TMS Roundtable, and for this coming March, it'll be 6 or 7 years. I lose count. But I've been going live, and in honor of Rose, my co-host, who was actually from Melbourne. She's up in the heaven. She's joining us always from the galaxies in the heaven. She's just such a light. And we've been streaming live together. She passed away, and then I've been on my own for a few years. And so this is like number 200, and we're almost up to like close to 300. We go live every week, and I'm not planning on stopping. So every week you can expect to see us in some time zone. Today it's afternoon for me in my time zone, and evening in Australia for Lalita. So we always try to hit different time zones. Wait, I want to practice my producing and bring up who you are and say a few words about Lalita. We met kind of through the chronic fatigue community, which I started to get interested in because chronic fatigue, TMS, neuroplastic, these are words, these are labels. They're, as far as I think Lolita and I are concerned, it's coming from the same dysregulated brain, the same person who was traumatized, big T's, little T's, sensitive, smart individuals suffering and struggling. And you and I have both met so many people that have recovered, that are on their journey. And I think it's your mission in life and my mission. So we're connected on helping, assisting people in their own self healing, guiding them. And I so appreciate rubbing shoulders with you across the globe. So Lalita Holmes, I'm going to let you do the talking, and I'm going to just breathe and hold the space for you. I am blessed to have you in my
Thank
studio.
you.
There may be some listeners that can ask questions, can leave your questions, can see us on the YouTube tomorrow in the recording, can reach out to you. We are available for our community. Start from hello, I call it, like, appetizer, like when you started to see yourself not feeling well from a trauma or not, what was going on, so you can give us a timeline and share with the listeners what's been happening and how you've recovered.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's an awful long journey. 30 years actually before even internet when I first became ill. Um, so, 17 years of that in this severe chronic illness, various of them, and 13 years in vibrant health, amazing health, wonderful health until recently. And I'll get to that later, thanks to long COVID. But yeah, so I've learnt so much in those 30 years, honestly. When I look back now, just an incredible wealth of information, knowledge, and understanding that I've gathered because I was one of those super actively searching, right? Even from being bedridden for years, I was still searching. I would try and um, pick up little paragraphs, little books, about people recovering. So I was doing that back then. I didn't realize it. That now I do, but I didn't realize back then what I was doing. But I was actually training my brain to look for solutions, and I just wouldn't accept my prognosis. I wouldn't accept what the doctors had told me.
So what?
So
How did
what
it begin? Yeah.
yeah, so I had just and this is the amazing thing to understand this neuroplastic part of the brain. Now, mine started from a physical injury. I fell in my garden on the concrete and landed on my coccyx, and I had physical pain. So I do what I normally do. I've had many physical injuries before. I was a very active, athletic person. And I just go to the chiropractor, I go to the osteopath, I go for acupuncture, I do something, and my back's okay. But for some reason this time, even though my scans didn't show anything, and this is what we know about neuroplastic pain now, that all our tests and scans and everything can show nothing, but I was in this horrific pain. So eventually I had to stop working. I couldn't stand anymore. I couldn't sit anymore. I was in excruciating pain in my back, all throughout my back. And then it just kept spreading. So before long, you know, the pain was so severe. And then I was on a lot of medication to control that. And then I started getting all these other symptoms. Now, what the heck? Why am I getting all these other symptoms? So, insomnia starts, and, muscle pain starts, headaches, restless leg, itchy skin, just heaps and heaps and heaps of symptoms. And they just keep getting more of them. So I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I don't understand this. And I'm going to naturopaths, I'm going to homeopaths, I'm going to functional medicine doctors, doing Ayurvedic medicine, doing Chinese medicine. And this is what I mean. I was actively involved in my recovery. I wanted to recover. I just couldn't make sense of what was happening to me. Nothing was adding up. I had a fall on my coccyx. Why have I got all these other symptoms now?
Wow, wow.
And so, yeah, that search went on for 17 years, trying everything. Oh, it must
Anything,
be,
anything
must
help
have been
you
that
along the way?
virus.
Did anything help you along the way? Did you get any relief along those years?
Small things, small increments, really interesting things like um, I one of the first things I did was I went down the rabbit hole that it was a virus, because I did have a very severe virus years earlier, and since I had that, I was always a little bit more tired than normal. But I had a big family of children, so I rarely slept. I thought it was just being a mum and working, and I'm just tired, right? You don't think there's anything wrong, but so I went down the rabbit hole. It must be a virus, must be bacteria, viruses, toxins, all that. And I probably did that for several years. And one of the things that I did was antibiotic therapy with a doctor. Tiny, tiny amounts of very specific antibiotic. They had a special machine called a bioresonance machine, where they test you for what the bacteria or the virus that you have, and then which antibiotic will match that. So they took a long time to test that, and they found one, and they said, try this. And at the same time, we need to change your diet, get off all the inflammatory foods. And so I did that was a 2-year commitment to just stick with that. So whatever I did do, I'd be really committed to it, and I would make sure that I did it for a minimum of 3 months, everything else. But this therapy, they said 2 years minimum. So I did that. I took the antibiotics, and I got a slight increment of energy, I guess. I just had a little bit more energy, but it didn't last long. Didn't last long. And then the other things were magnetic therapy. I used that for quite a while. That reduced my pain levels, still very severe, but less. But because by this time you're so in tune with your body. Like I knew every single little thing that was happening in my body. Tiniest little increment I'd have of feeling, a bit of energy, feeling a bit easier, moving a bit easier, I'd notice it, and I'd celebrate it and I'd do something, I'd cook something or I'd, just do something with that bit of energy that I had. So, we didn't have all the pacing tools and the pacing stuff all back then. That's all fairly new, right? But I was intuitively pacing. I was listening to my body all the time, checking in with my body. What can I do today?
Already you had a comfortable relationship with your body, and you weren't, I mean, we can talk about
Yes.
this because so many people at this point, after these years, I mean, like they're scared, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're disconnected. Where you seem to somehow stay connected to your body with some kind of compassion. That's
Was
what it
I
sounds
was
like.
still I went through a period of being angry. Don't get me wrong. When I first then got diagnosed, I was severely angry. I was angry with the doctors, I was angry with myself, I was angry with the illnesses. And I went through a long grieving period. I was in a deep depression. So I did go through all of that, right? But still, I'm always checking in with my body, how it's going as far as energy, as far as
You didn't give
what
up.
can
What we're
I do.
saying here, like fork in the road to our listeners, coming from Lolita, who's just so courageous and so brave. I mean, I can't relate to what you were going through, but here's the fork in the road. You didn't give up. You believed,
No.
you had hope, you stayed, you didn't give up. Like, this is where we need to tell our individuals. It's just, I know how deep it can get, how black the hole can get, but somehow in you, there was some kind of light and spark. So go ahead. So you were
I
depressed.
had thoughts of giving up. Absolutely. I had thoughts of giving up, right? But you just keep going. You keep going. And because deep, deep inside of me, I always had this belief. I think because I'd been very athletic and I'd had so many injuries, there was a part of my brain that knew that I could get better. I could recover from really severe injuries. So if my body can do that, then I can recover from this. So I had that core belief. And because I'd started to read, some of those recovery stories from paraplegics, and one book I read, there was a woman who's very much like me. As I was reading it word for word, she was like me, and she fully recovered. So, I always had that belief that I could as well. And it is a big part of recovery. I That's what I've seen over the years. The people who really have that core belief that they can recover and keep going and keep coming back to that, it does help. It absolutely does help. So much about recovery is about mindset. So much of it is our thoughts, our feelings, our words that we use. I've definitely learnt that along the way.
A little woo
And
woo. Sounds a little new age. What do my thoughts have to do with it?
actually, if you want to know more about that, I really love the Heart Math Research Institute. I'm not sure if you've heard of them,
Well,
but
yeah.
they're the ones who do the research on that, what we
Yeah,
think is woo woo, but it's actually
of
very
course.
real.
I mean, even like part of that institute, I saw the movie. Um, I'm blanking on the name. I'll think of it, but they were involved with this movie. It actually was filmed
Mm,
here in Israel. It was called um, The One Field. The One
I
Field.
haven't heard of that.
Okay,
Okay.
so it was filmed in Israel, and this group from the Heart Math Institute. Um, we were talking about universal prayer and how it can affect
Yeah.
the universe, and that's a
Yes.
different topic. But interestingly enough, for people listening, they showed our blood changing from a certain music,
Yes.
a certain kind
Yes.
of tone or music, or and
That's
so we
right.
know now about the music heals. We know now that, so you saw the blood move by the music. You saw, and
Yes.
then they did a test in the afterward, and then we know about sound therapy. We know about our cells
Yes.
hearing us speak.
Gratitude.
So this is all another topic, but like again, and
Yeah.
lovely. Now in the 21st century, you and I are privy to the research about
Yes.
thoughts can heal you, thoughts can hurt you. And this is how important it is
Yes.
to know, to be connected to our subconscious mind. So talk more about how
So
so you said
epigenetics, the world
right,
of epigenetics,
right.
that's what that's all about. Our environment and the largest part about how our environment impacts our cells is our thoughts and our words and our feelings, you know.
So here
So
you are, you're 17, you're so many years, your 30-year journey, but you're about 17 years into it, and you're doing this
70s, yeah.
antibiotic work, and then what happened on the journey?
And tons of other things, tons of things, right? Yeah, all the Chinese medicine, the Chinese herbs, years of Ayurvedic medicine, acupuncture, uh, everything you can imagine, right? Everything you can imagine. Even I walked over fire. I did an NLP and walked over fire because I thought, if and that's about belief, right? That's about belief, that NLP
Understanding
work.
where the pain is being processed here, and you're
That's
not,
right.
you're focused on some hot sensation in your feet, says Tony Robbins, and then you're on hot coals. So
No,
this is
I felt
fascinating.
nothing.
Wow.
But what I've learned is, even though I did all those hundreds of things, what I've discovered is that most of those things that I did over those 17 years were not dealing with what's in the unconscious. Okay. So 98% of what is going on with us is unconscious, when, particularly with chronic illnesses. 2% is doing all those other things that I did, right? And it took me a long, long time to get
Key.
that, to
This is
understand
key.
that.
I want to make this
Yeah.
point, and I'm sorry for interrupting. I just want people to take home key. And we think about just blessings to any of our clients that are not moving quickly enough on their journey. So a shout out to anyone who's going to hear this, that we must have a relationship with our unconscious mind and go there, be comfortable there, rescue our little child there, whatever it takes. Go ahead, to be in that place to continue the healing into our unconscious mind.
This is the thing, though. Not many people know how to, right? Not many people know how to work with the unconscious. Okay, they know that they have this part of themselves that's the unconscious, and they try to do it through meditation. They try and do it through yoga. They try and do it through breath work. They try and do it through somatic practices and lots of different ways. And they all do to a degree. They all touch on it to a degree. But I want to be able to access my unconscious faster.
Whenever you want.
I want to access it, and I want to make the changes in the unconscious faster, right? So, one of the things that's helped me to understand that is the cell danger response aspect, which Dr. Navio talks about. Okay. Now, what I've discovered is that, and again, this is like over the 30 years of learning all this and putting it all together and understanding it and seeing the results with clients. I've been working with clients for 13 years. I have seen everything you can imagine, absolutely everything. So, this mind body work, this unconscious work, this danger response work applies to almost everything. Depression, anxiety, fears, phobias, addictions, right? Right across the board, PTSD, all these conditions. It applies. The same thing is happening because it's happening in the unconscious brain. And we all have an unconscious brain. Now, the
How did you,
unconscious,
at this point, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Just at this point in your journey, I want to be on the journey so people see where you got from A to Z. So you're uh, reading a bit, you're still symptomatic, and at some point you understood more about your unconscious and you began to work with it. So what's going on now on your journey
that's
after
right. I
20
started
years?
to learn about the brain, started to learn about the brain and how my brain is doing this. So the neuroplastic, right? Even though I had all the structural issues happening in my body. Yes, I could have just gone, oh, it's structural. No, you can't do anything. I have a very degenerated spine, right, as a result of the lupus. I have these things wrong with my lungs. I have these things wrong with my heart. All my tests are showing that. I need to have my joints replaced because they're all worn out. Knee to knee bone pain, hip pain, they all needed to be replaced, right? So I had all the structural issues, had all the pain there, but I still knew that a large proportion of that my brain was doing it because I had all those other symptoms. It didn't make sense that it was just structural. There was something else going on. It must be my brain. Okay. And so then I started to learn about this cell danger response. Now, what I've learned about that is there are 5 different ways that the brain is signaling danger to us. So, have you heard, like, in these groups, people talk about just I think I'm ill because I got a virus. I think I'm ill because this happened. I think I'm ill because that happened. I think it's Lyme. I think it's mold. All these different causes that people think that's what has made them sick, right? But there's 5 different ways, and they are psychological. So the psychological issues that you and I and everybody else out there carry with us in the unconscious. What's the psychological issues that I have that's in my unconscious, right? My patterns, my programs, my traumas that I've experienced throughout my life, my losses, right? All of those things are in that psychological trigger. Then there's the emotional. So it's how do I process my emotions? I process my emotions very differently to how my husband does, right? Or how this friend does. We all process emotions differently. How do I process my emotions? Well, I was a stuffer down, I was a suppressor. I suppressed everything. I was the people pleaser. Keep the peace for everybody, please everybody else. Ignore my own needs, my own pain. So, we've got to find out what these emotional patterns are, and that's in the unconscious. Trigger 2, right? Trigger 3. Did I have a virus? Environmental. Is it Lyme? Is it mold? Did I get bitten? Was I exposed to toxic chemicals? Is it EMF? So all of those environmental things, it's that. So if you're just thinking it's environmental and you don't look at psychological and emotional as well, you're going to miss something. Okay, so I wanted to tick off all these boxes, look at all of them, because I was not going to leave anything unturned if I wanted to get well. Then there's the physical. So for me, that's how it started. The physical trauma. And physical is injuries, surgeries, birth, and all those physical things that we have to deal with, that we face, insomnia. And then there's the spiritual. So there's five. The spiritual, a lot of people miss this part in recovery, is, I always feel disconnected. I don't feel like I belong. I don't have a sense of purpose, right? I feel really lost and alone. And I certainly had a lot of that going on with me. So I ticked all of those. But when I was looking for recovery, I was only looking at like one thing. Like I was looking at, it was a virus. Oh, it was that physical injury. It was, you know, some of my naturopaths, they said to me, this is psychological for you. There's been trauma in your life. So they just address that one. But you've got to look at all of them, and you've got to see, where do I fit in with that? Right. So when I'm working with people, when I'm supporting people, I get them to look at all of those. Right. We look at every one of them and find out what's in the unconscious that could be still signaling danger in the brain. Where are the alarm bells going off in the brain? Was it that physical injury and that emotional pain and that spiritual feeling of being lost, right? So you're looking at all of them. And once you start exploring that, and how I found the best way to do that is via memories, because we all have memories, okay? So for me, when I had that physical injury, that then became a memory in my unconscious. I had that physical injury. And the thing also is that when I had that physical injury, I was very, very unhappy at the time, extremely unhappy. And I can remember very clearly, even as I was walking down the path, I was in real distress inside, emotional distress. And then I had the fall, and my brain just linked those two together. And it took me years and years and years to figure out, that's why. That's why I still continue to have the pain, because I hadn't addressed the emotional pain. As soon as I addressed the emotional pain, which was my memories, I'm free of pain, right? The danger alert just switched off. It's like, you're not in danger anymore. You've processed that, you've addressed that, that doesn't bother you anymore, and I was free of pain. Now, that doesn't happen with everybody. That doesn't happen with everyone just like that. um, I very rarely see that with many people, where that happens like that. Most people, it's just the layers and layers and layers that you've got to look at and unfold and process. So the memories are the key to addressing, and this is why, Dr. Howard Schubner, in what he does, in his um, EAET, his emotional expression therapy, he does this time travel part of it, where you go back to when those emotions were very strong and very high, and you process them, especially the ones that you've suppressed, especially the
But,
ones you've suppressed.
along with Dr. Schubner's work, I want to mention about, what Dr. Clark always says, and I repeat it every week because it's so powerful, and we need to do it again and again and again. And this is the gastroenterologist, so I'm always asking to give me something more. And he's like, nope, this is it. To be a butterfly on the wall of your
Yeah.
childhood, and
Yes.
and the compassion. And here we're back to the brain and compassion and self-love and self-care, which we'll mention. but this is what's
Mm,
happened. So to go back there and to the listeners, not to get rid of the memories or say, okay, I'm done. It's almost like we can embrace it, we can hold it, we can integrate it into our present move. So it's part of like an accepting awareness. And Dr. Hanscom will
that's
talk about
right.
awareness. So I want to just look at that. Like, we're not here to like go back and dig up the past. Maybe
No,
we're here to be aware, to accept.
relive it. You can't relive memories. So once I discovered that it was the memories that are in the unconscious. So this is what I'm saying about, we know about the unconscious, but we don't know how to access that information. People use hypnosis and there's various other tools around to access the unconscious. But for me, I've gone down I just address the memories, because that's what's in the
You mention
unconscious. So I
more to the
started to
listeners.
follow.
Can you mention more? Forgive me for interrupting. Could you give us an example just of you addressed the memories. So help people to understand, because like, do they sit with it, Lolita? Do they journal about it? Do they meditate on it? Do they forgive someone? Like, what can they do? What can they bite into that they
One
can
of the
do?
first things, one of the first things I do is I get people to watch some videos on memory research. Dr. Danielle Schiller is my go-to. She's at the forefront of memory research. Once you understand how your memory works, there's no problem with it. There's no issue with it because we know that memories are all changing all the time. They're updating all the time. They're reprocessing all the time. So once you understand that, then memories are not an issue. You're not going to get people saying, oh, but I don't want to relive my memories, because you can't relive your memories, right? I don't want to dig up the past. You're not digging up the past, because everything we do day to day, we're accessing memories. We're changing memories, right? All the time, whatever you do, from the moment you wake up, get up, and you do your day to day things, you're accessing your
This
memories,
is
aren't
what
you?
this is what Dr. Dispenza says, that your memories become your
24/7.
behavior, and we need to look at those memories in order to shift our behavior and break the habit of being yourself and become your own placebo. So this is a
Yes.
key I wasn't so aware of. So grateful that you're bringing this out in this broadcast, because to really, and we're talking about your thoughts. So let's talk about the thoughts, the memories, because the memories become thoughts, thoughts become behaviors, then we get stuck. So that's what you're meaning by the memories. The memories become thoughts. And some of them get stuck in the unconscious. Some of them don't serve us. Some of them are good for us. Some of them are
Well,
unhealthy.
actually, I'm not sure whether I agree with that. Memories become thoughts. Thoughts evolve as a result of that memory. But
Yes, good. Thank you.
so all memories, whether it's the significant event in your life, or whether it's, you're learning to drive, whether, when we first learn to start walking, right? You just watched a little baby walking. They crawl first. That's part of learning to walk. They crawl, right? And then the brain remembers how to crawl. This one first, right? And then they're pulling themselves up, feeling comfortable, feeling strong, feeling okay, and then walking around the furniture, right? And all of those, it happens in increments, and the brain is filing all that away. Oh, it felt like this when I was walking. That they can imagine themselves doing it, right? So the next time they just get up and start walking along the couch faster, until one day they just let go and they walk across the room to the arms of their parents, right? So the brain is embedding every experience that you have as a memory to recall it again next time. Oh, so now we don't have to think about walking, do we? It's just automatic. automatic, right? Everything we do, like how often do you think about driving the car? When you drive a car, you don't now. You just jump in and you just go through the motions. So that memory of driving the car is in the unconscious, it's automatic. So all memories are like that. Now, the significant part of memories, images and emotions. They're the two parts that we as human beings seem to keep accessing, right? So whenever you recall a memory, so if I think about something now that happened yesterday, immediately I'll have an image in my mind of what happened yesterday. And then after that will be the emotions that I felt at the time. Okay. So when you're looking at addressing memories, reprocessing memories, shifting memories, changing memories, and the only reason we're doing it is to bring it out of the danger response. That's the only way you want to do it, is because that memory had a significant impact on your thoughts, on your feelings, on your emotions. And once the brain sees that as danger, so something bad happened yesterday, right? So for example, I had someone call me the other day and they hadn't slept for days because something had happened that was emotionally really troubling for them. And so they couldn't sleep, right? So that memory, when they go back to it, it's image first and then the emotions they felt. So once we were able to shift that image, shift those emotions, and there's different tools and techniques to do that. It's taken me years to learn how to do that. Then suddenly that memory is not a trigger anymore, and that person can go back to sleeping. Okay. So another story I can share with you is a little girl that came to see me with her mother. She's about 8, 9 years old, and she has this terrible cough. She's coughing and coughing and coughing, like a really deep, barking type of cough. And everyone's annoyed by it. Everyone's sick of it. They're always telling her off, at school, at home. And she starts to just feel like she's a nuisance, that she just bothers everybody. So she's losing her confidence, but she continues to cough. And her mother brought her to see me, and they'd tried everything. They'd been to the doctors, they'd had all the tests done. She went to the speech therapist, just did everything they could. She had tubes put down her throat to see what was wrong. There's nothing wrong with her. Again, neuroplastic, right? There was nothing physically wrong with her, but she kept coughing. Now, I knew there was something in her unconscious that was creating this coughing, default, automatic coughing. And so I just said to her, I said to her mother, how long has she been coughing for? Oh, 2 years. 2 years this has been going on. And I said to the little girl, what happened 2 years ago that was really upsetting for you, that really worried you, that hurt you? What happened? And she told me straight away. She went to this memory 2 years ago. She said, Mum took a phone call and it was her grandfather. He's in hospital, very, very ill. So she watched her mother take this phone call, very distressed, very distraught, and she watched her mother doing that. And the coughing started, right? So it was an emotional response. Now, why coughing? This is the second significant question to ask someone. Who else coughs in your family? Who else has a really bad cough? Oh, grandma. She coughs all the time. That's how we find her in the supermarket, because we know where she is. She's coughing. So the brain made a link that when you're distressed, because grandma suffers from anxiety, when you distress, you cough, right? That's the link her brain made. And Dr. Schubiner talks about this, why is it that some people have back pain and others don't? Why do some people get headaches and others don't? There's an association made in the brain. So her association was grandma coughs. So then I got her to just think about that memory, and I helped her do a very soothing, calming exercise. And she walked through that memory like she was watching a movie, very safe. And she was able to then find forgiveness in that memory, find understanding in that memory, have a different perspective of that memory. And then I said to her, now can you cough? Remember how you were coughing before? And she couldn't cough, just like that. So the danger response in her brain was that memory, right? Something bad happened. So the psychological, emotional were the danger responses. That was the danger alert in her brain. And once we were able to access the memory that was signaling that danger, it just switched off. No more coughing. No more coughing. And she's grown up now. She's an amazing young girl. She's, just thriving in her life. I I'd hate to think what would have happened in her life if she'd continued that coughing. But it's an example of
Great
neuroplastic.
example. It's a great example. And there are people who, they know what triggered them. They know it was the memory of this trigger. They know it was
But
something. They know
nobody asks
specifically.
them.
Right. But
Nobody
like
asks them.
there are people it's a great example. And again, there are adults who are deep into their brain and to their patterns, and they know what triggered them. This is not helping them. There's something still blocking because they know it, but there's
Yes,
something deep in the unconscious that's still protecting them from, a fire, a lion that's coming, and the
that's right.
situation's done. They're not near the danger, but the
Mm,
unconscious mind, with the memories still like 10,
keeping
10,
them
10,
safe.
alarm, alarm, alarm.
Mm,
So this is where for some, we have to unpeel a deeper layer of the onion for them to get to that place. And you're saying it can't be through meditation. It can't be through vagal nerve, vagal toning, or,
I would
it
be
can be,
very
it can be.
surprised.
But
I would be
these,
very surprised if you told that little girl to just meditate,
right, no,
that
but
that would have
adults,
fixed it,
right,
right?
exactly. But
Mm.
adults are not getting, like, they're in their unconscious mind. Like, it's something so it's esoteric. Like, let's go to our unconscious mind. And I think, look, I learned from years ago from Rose and a couple of psychologists from the ISTDP world that we have to make a bridge between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. And that's where the healing. Ah, I closed my eyes and she's gone. Come back, Lalita. Come back. I don't do this well alone. Let's see, she'll be back here in a minute. Anyway, until she comes back, that we have to draw a bridge between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. And that's where the healing can happen. And again, we're going to speak to Lolita about how to continually, even after attempts of it not maybe working, or it doesn't feel like I can access my unconscious mind, how we can have tools to do that. So I hope she comes back. Maybe it was her computer. Ah, thank you, universe. Thank you, universe.
I I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's the universe, and I'm grateful that you're back. So, as I was saying, you know, we're this is a key. This is a key, and people know about drawing a road, a path from the conscious mind to the unconscious mind to the from the heart brain institute,
Right.
like to the coherent. So
Via
how do
memories.
we
You
and
build that bridge
through
via
the
the memories.
memories? Wow,
The
by the
memories is the bridge.
love that. I love that. So continue on. So this is very interesting
Yeah,
examples.
so whilst you have um, the traumatic memories, the stressful memories, the events that have happened in your life, and the brain has that in the filing cabinet in the unconscious, whilst they're all still there, the alarm will be going off.
Where do
Okay?
they have to go? Where do they have to go? Where do these memories have to go?
What do you mean? Where do they
I
have
mean,
to go?
you said that as long as they're still there, the alarm goes off. As long as the memories are still there, the alarm goes off.
Yeah, so like that little girl, we access that memory by asking two simple questions which no one had asked her, right? Nobody had asked her all the tests that she had done about this, her emotional self, right? What could have happened? Because the medical system doesn't put all of that together. They
Right.
just looked at her physical structure. There must be something
Of
wrong with her
course.
physically, why she is coughing.
Oh, she was ripe for healing, but there are smart and brilliant, sensitive people that you and I meet that will go to their memory, forgive, write a letter, throw it out, journal, get rid of the memory, and like do, but they're not getting results of their symptoms or they're not calming their brain because somehow they're not accessing that place in the way that we're just saying access it. So for someone who's an adult and not so easily able to let go, like the little girl, and understand, because
A
they're
couple of
we'll
couple of
understand that.
ways you can a couple of ways you can check if you're using these other methods, like Dr. Howard, he addresses the memories using his emotional, release exercises. Okay. So address the emotions that you've suppressed, release all of those emotions. And it's not just that aspect. It is quite a process to go through that. And and then the memory just reprocesses by itself. But the important part of that memory processing is rescripting it as well. Now, if you're doing that by journaling, and people have great success journaling, the one of the ways you can check it if you're using other ways to address your memories, make sure that the image is different. Okay? So check to make sure the image is different. Check to see if those emotions are no longer there. They're no longer bothering you. So if you can just do those two things, then you know that memory is processed and it's not going to keep triggering that danger response. So whatever methods people are using, that's what I would advise. Check those.
Yeah, and I think for some of the people that are stuck, wouldn't you agree, Lolita, that they're doing the work, they're going to the deep place. But what I'm learning is that if they have the anger and the fear and the lack of hope, and they're like, their defenses are up, they're not going to get there.
Mm.
They're not, they're going to have to be like kind of
Well, those defenses are protecting them. The
right.
defenses are there for a reason,
Good
right?
point.
So what you've got to figure out is, how is that protecting them, those defenses, right? Because it may be the way that they hold on to emotions. It might be a pattern that they have of having their defenses up. Maybe they haven't been able to have their defenses down in the past. They
No,
might have a pattern of having their defenses up because they've had to. So the brain is always protecting us. It's always in that hyper protective mode because that's its job. right? So my brain was protecting me using pain to keep me in bed. Because if I was to be well and to get out of bed and to go back to the life that I was living, I might have to leave my marriage. And that was terrifying for me because I had been abandoned as a child, right? So the thought of being abandoned again was enough for my brain to keep me in bed until I resolved that, right? But I didn't know that. That was in my unconscious. It took a long time to unpack that. It took me understanding my brain, what was going on with my brain, how was my brain protecting me, how was my brain keeping me safe. And then, you know, I could recover. That danger signal didn't need to be on anymore. I didn't need to have that pain anymore because now I know that I'm strong enough, I'm worthy enough, I'm valuable enough, I'm loved enough to leave if I need to leave, and I'll be okay. I'm not that abandoned little girl anymore who had no parents from the age of 2, right? I'm not that little girl anymore, but in my brain, because I have the memories of that, my brain was protecting me. So when we're ill, whatever's wrong with us, the brain is just protecting you. And our job is to try and figure out what's it protecting us from. And that's why I go to those five different ways. If you can look deeply at each one of those, how your brain is protecting you, it's never usually one alone. I've never met anyone in 13 years I've been doing this where it's just been one thing. People will say to me, "Oh, but I've had a really good childhood, and you know, this is this is happening." But then, as we're talking, I I find out that they actually haven't had such a great childhood. They just imagine that they had, but they felt neglected when they were a child. They felt disconnected, not good enough, all these different things as a child, right? So there's the emotional part, right? They thought it was just a virus, but it was actually more than that. It's never one thing. So I really encourage people to explore that, explore what could be the alert that's in my brain that's still signaling danger. Yeah.
And for people to be so compassionate. I mean, Lolita and I are both mothers. I'm a grandmother. I don't know if you're a grandmother, but to be compassionate for the people that may have hurt us, triggered us, because we're not here to blame. Blame doesn't work. We're here to accept, be aware of, have enormous compassion. And the fact is, we can be pissed at our parents. Don't take it on yourself. If they own up to what they own their shit, as I say. They got to be responsible for their shit. We can't take it on. And then there's the guilt of like, so it's not about blame, but it's the awareness that like we came out of a difficult childhood. We had difficult things growing up. The patterns keep repeating. And how do we free ourselves without
Mm.
disowning our family or blaming,
Oh
somehow
no, no.
disintegrating this comes
That's
from a compassionate, loving, and place of
yeah.
grace. This is where the spiritual piece, I think, for some of us to bring God
Mm.
into the picture or to understand that you're, a physical being in a spiritual body, like to however you want to look at it. For some people that have that piece, it expedites their healing to kind of don't go along, bring God into it, understand your parents did the best they can, but give them grace. Like in other words,
But
I
again,
guess
uh, yeah, again, what you're describing there for me feels like that's coming from the conscious, the 2% conscious. Okay. The real forgiveness, the real peace, the real healing needs to happen from the unconscious in the relationship with the parents, right? That's where you've got to do it.
It may take a lifetime, but you don't have to be in physical pain or be ill to work through these files in your brain. Like we all have trauma, we all
No,
have childhood, but so
no.
I always say, like, choose which one you want. You're going to have to be with the memories. You're going to have to access them, incorporate them, move on with them. Try not to bring them into the next relationship. But with this grace and compassion, I talk about that that you don't need to that we can move on, that we're free, we have choices, that we have choices, we're not stuck, that we have choices in order to move forward, because we get caught up in the conscious mind. I mean, I love the way we get so caught up in our head, and we can't think our way to the heart. We can't think our way to the unconscious mind. We have to accept it, be aware of it. Tell me more what you would say, like in your words. I'm just talking about what I believe, but I'm learning a lot here about what you're saying regarding accessing those memories, processing them, incorporating them, understanding the players in our life, and that we have choices. We can have the trauma and not be ill. We can be emotionally connected. This is what I'm trying to say. Some people I meet, the symptoms go away, but then they're heavily laden down with emotional baggage. So they have to choose, because the emotional baggage is I don't know where the emotional space that they have to be in is where the freedom comes, is where the recovery comes. When they're with their emotions, when they're, you know, connected to their deep emotions, to their fear, their anger, their sadness, and they're not stuffing it down. So can you chat a little bit about the memories and being with the emotions? Like I said on Raylan's show, like I live with enormous trauma and stress, but I have coffee with my fear, and I go to the gym with my loneliness, and I go to sleep with my sorrow, and I'm hanging out with my feelings, and I don't have, because I don't want I'm making a choice. I don't want to have the physical sensations. I don't need my brain to be protecting me, but I'm in a place of humility in my unconscious mind, of sadness sometimes, a lot of times, fear, anger, and I think is it that needs to be a comfortable place for people, and they bolt from there, you know. And Brad Gutting from the Mind Body Syndrome page says, like, if you're suppressing your emotions, you're not experiencing them. So I think we're talking about experiencing your emotions, you know, in a way that you take them with you and you live your life. Can you chat about that in your world? I don't know if it's my internet, but this show's been a few triggers in the broadcasting, and I know that Lolita will be back and answer my question. Thank you for your patience. Come back, Lolita. Lolita, we're talking about processing. I don't like the word processing, accepting, being aware, understanding, having compassion and grace for your feelings, not believing that you have a choice, that you can choose to have the physical sensations, the symptoms, or hang out with your feelings. So, do you remember that question? Do
So
you have that question
when
about your being with your feelings?
I can hear you when I leave, so I don't know whether I'm going out of the right one or what
Maybe
I'm
it may be
doing.
my internet, so maybe just the waves. So go ahead.
Right. Okay. So what I wanted to leave people with is um, so moving on. What I've learned was that we're human beings. We feel things and um, like we live in the past and live in the future all the time, right? So we're going to always have day-to-day challenges as well as, so there's two ways that I like to do things. One is to do the deeper work and help people to process their memories and their emotions, rescript those memories so that the cell danger response is not alerted any longer.
Create a healthier image.
e- everything about the memory will shift and change, right? I'm very thorough when I'm helping someone with a memory. I'm very, very thorough. We go back and check it, go back and check it, and go back and check it until it's no longer has any emotional charge. The image is different. There's nothing about it that bothers them any longer, right? Just like that little girl seeing her mother distressed, that memory didn't bother her anymore. She just kept imagining her grandfather going on a cruise. Her brain rescripted it, and that's why it switched that danger response off and she stopped coughing. Okay, so two different ways. One is you do the deeper work and you might need some assistance in processing those emotions. The second way is you need a tool that you can use in the heat of the moment, day to day, sometimes moment by moment, right? So if something happens throughout the day that triggers you, that upsets you, that you're ruminating about, you need a tool to help you with that. So you need a tool that works quickly, effectively, because the brain accesses information in a nanosecond, right? So you can be triggered in a nanosecond. Someone might look at you in a certain way. Someone might say something to you and you're back in the past immediately. So you need a tool that's going to help you to release, to process, to move on from that, right? So I teach people that, and it might be a simple breathing technique. I use tapping. I teach people how to use a tapping technique and several other ways so that wherever they are, they can access a way to, because neuroscientists tell us that all emotions rise and fall in 90 seconds.
I've
90
heard that
seconds.
before. I heard that before.
So, so you need a tool that you can access and shift and change in 90 seconds. So if something happens, you can't sit down and meditate, right? You can't do a yoga move. You can't do even sometimes mindfulness. You need a tool that's really quick. And the breath is sometimes the easiest one to do. When you find yourself activated, and that takes a fair bit of awareness, self-awareness, right? Most people I've found in these years that I've been working are very not really self-aware of what's happening inside of them. So practice becoming aware, practice noticing what's happening inside of you. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's that feeling, uncomfortable feeling in my body? Right? And they're all memories, by the way. All triggers are memories, all sensations in the body are memories, all thoughts are memories, right? So you start noticing those. So if I have a running thought that I don't like, which usually it'll be like a self-critical type. What's going
Do you see me?
on?
I'm here.
Something's
I'm here.
coming up on the screen.
I'm here. I'm here.
So you want to be able to process that really within that 90 seconds, because if you don't, guess what the brain does? It tells you a story about it, right? And then before you know it, you're in that story and you're feeling miserable, and you're still feeling miserable days later because that person looked at you in that certain way when you were at work, right? Or they said something to you at work that triggered you, and you're still feeling suffering and you're still feeling terrible days later, sometimes weeks later. People come and see me sometimes, something happened in their workplace and they've had to leave work. They've had to have time stress leave because that person said something to them, right? Because they've gone into their story about what happened. So if you can get into this habit of recognizing, being aware of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, triggers, and have a tool that you can process that within that 90 seconds, you're well on the way to having a really good life, a really good life. And that's how I live now. That's how I stay well now, right? Is I feel something I don't like, straight away I use one of my tools. If I'm triggered, straight away, I use one of my tools. If I've noticed I've started going into the story about it, oh, he always does that, always says that, why does he treat me like that? That's the story because of the memories, right? Then I'm going to really feel miserable and I don't want to feel miserable anymore. So I immediately use one of my tools, right? Calming, soothing, compassion, releasing the emotions, and I live a much happier life. And then from time to time, if I need to do some deeper work, like recently I had COVID for the second time and I ended up with long COVID. And I really didn't like that. It was very minor compared to most people. But I went back to all my tools. I went back to doing the
I close my eyes. Lolita goes. Something with the waves, the internet. But I did want to give you a tool. I learned last week from Noah, who was on my broadcast. If you just put your hand on your heart, can actually draw you to activate the vagus nerve, and that's a very powerful calming and softening. Humming, we can just hum. Movement, just get up and move, change your position, kind of close your eyes, go within. I find myself tapping a lot. Okay, and for some of us, just deep breathing. Absolutely, yeah. Lolita, I'm so sorry. I think it might be the internet.
is
It's
it every
okay.
time you close your eyes that
Yeah,
it go
exactly. It
like,
might be something with the internet because I go into. So it's okay.
it's very strange.
Gonna speak to my virtual software. But you come back, and that's the most important thing: is you fall and get up, and I'm like already like I'm calm. So, but you were talking about, and I was
Good.
mentioning that last week I had a lovely lady who's talked about somatic
Yeah,
experience and a lot of
I
Vegas.
can hear you.
It was
Mm,
amazing, and about the heart. And I know I'll put my hand on my heart, or just I'll find myself just tapping a little bit, and it's just so calming, and humming and getting up and moving,
yeah.
activating the blood and oxygen. I mean, some of us, we just get stuck, we're in freeze mode, and just to come out of it and talk to the brain. And so this has really been an amazing
Yeah.
broadcast. There's more to say, there's more to talk about. And so I would love for you to come back maybe in a few weeks. We meet again, and we'll maybe practice some of the
Yeah,
tools
I'd
that
love to actually go through. I can get you to choose a memory and guide you through it.
maybe we'll bring
And
somebody on. We'll bring somebody who wants to come on and do it with us, and kind of really be like, I love to help people in the moment to do it. So
would
maybe we
need a better,
can.
I think it would need better internet though.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need something
What
else
happens?
because
Yeah, what? Yeah,
this isn't good.
yeah. Listen, you're in Australia. I'm in Israel. I think it's sometimes just the speed at things, and I check my speed. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming back in. Thank you to our listeners. I'm like I said, one of my goals is to have a producer, that the producer would be doing this and not me figuring it out, because I'm not sure why you chime in and
Hopefully,
out.
people have some questions and can check back in
Yeah, yeah. There were
and
some people
answer
in
answer any
the
questions.
Facebook feed, but what happens is I will upload this recording later today, and it will be up on in my TMS roundtable, and then they can ask questions, and I'll refer them to you. Um, Lolita is available. I know I see on your site you're available for a even like a talk, like a discovery little talk, just to get to know someone, see if it's a right fit, but even just to share some of these
Yeah, that part's
insights.
really important. It's very important for people to feel like it's a good fit, for them and for me as well.
So, last thing that you could leave with our listeners, you've left so many uh, tools and tips and insights and motivation and education. I think it's something with my eyes closing. That is so interesting that with my eyes closing, Lolita goes out. Talk about sensitive. I have a sensitive studio. This is what we figured out. Because sometimes when I close my eyes, I can think better. So interesting. So I'm going to say goodbye unless Lolita comes back. Oh my goodness. It's something with my eyes. It's something with my eyes. I'm going to tell
Has
this.
that happened? Has that happened before?
No, but I'm going to talk to
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
they're very available, this Be Live studio. So anyway,
Yes, because it
I'll keep
definitely
my
happened every time you close your eyes.
I said it
It's
was a
very
sensitive
strange.
studio. So Lolita,
Well,
you've had
thank you.
enormous
Thanks for
patience.
your time.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah, I felt a bit disconnected. I felt because of what was going on. It was hard to stay focused, hard to
really,
kind
I
of,
really am just
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's all
There
right. That's
and
all
I'll,
right. It's
yeah, and
lovely
there's
chatting with you, and hopefully
so
someone
much.
heard it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're
I'll
curious.
I'll send you a copy after I upload it, and I will invite you back in a few weeks, and we'll continue this conversation. And I so much appreciate
Thank
your
you.
patience. And you're so smart. You know so much. And I'm so sorry you had to go through what you had to go through in order to get to this place. But you're a gift. You're a light.
That's okay.
To be able to.
I'm
Thank you
very
very much.
calm. I'm very relaxed. So it's all good.
Have a great night.
Okay. Thank you.
God
Bye-bye.
bless
Bye-bye.
everybody. 1 second. It's going to shoot off.